Has Kevin De Bruyne surpassed Steven Gerrard as the better midfield player? Both players have tremendous qualities and they are very, very good in nearly every facet of the game. So it's really hard to choose, but in today's video, I'm going to come to a conclusion. I'm going to run through their statistics, their best seasons, what they're good at, what they're not so good at, their big moments, and all the other variables which go into debating these two great players. So let's start with their best season. So Steven Gerrard's best season statistically was in 08-09, and that season he managed to get 24 goals and 13 assists in all competitions, which is absolutely brilliant. He almost led Liverpool to a Premier League title and he scored many iconic goals along the way. Steven Gerrard was a real force that season, playing in that second striker role up top, just behind Fernando Torres, and those two were absolutely deadly together and caused a lot of problems for other teams in the Premier League. Kevin De Bruyne's best season came in the 14-15 campaign for German side Wolfsburg. That season he notched up a staggering 28 assists and 16 goals for Wolfsburg, which is simply an incredible achievement in a team which wasn't filled with stars. Only downside, they played in the Europa League and they played in the Bundesliga, and for me they can't be held in the same regard as the Champions League or the Premier League because the competition is a lot easier. So for me, his best season came last season when Manchester City won the treble. He was arguably Pep's best player that season and he was so good for Manchester City. 31 assists, 10 goals, that is simply incredible from a midfield position. Carrying the ball forward, scoring goals, getting assists, big goals against the likes of Real Madrid, big goals against the likes of Arsenal, stepping up when Real Madrid really needed him. Yes, he was injured in the final once again, but that doesn't take away anything from a spectacular season from Kevin De Bruyne. So now let's talk about what they have won. So Kevin De Bruyne has won 5 Premier Leagues so far in his career, 1 Champions League and a host of domestic cups. Compared to Steven Gerrard, who never won a league title, won 1 Champions League though and a few domestic cups, you can clearly see who is the more decorated player. Look at the team Manchester City are. Look at the team De Bruyne plays in. He is playing with superstars. Aguero, Haaland, Rodri, Bernardo Silva, David Silva, Vincent Kompany, Kyle Walker. All elite players, all players who were at the top of their game whilst playing for City. Gerrard, yes, he played with Torres, Suarez, Coutinho. Lots of great players, Xabi Alonso, but then when you look at the other players he played with, like Gabriel Cisse, like Alberto Moreno, like Steve Finnan, like Vladimir Šmicer, nothing to take away from him, brilliant goal in the final, but he wasn't exactly an exceptional player. And there's many more players you can look through over the years that Gerrard has played with that wouldn't be put up in the same bracket as those Manchester City players. And that goes against you because it's harder to win league titles when you're playing in a team that was constantly second best year in, year out. Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal, they dominated the Premier League whilst Gerrard was at Liverpool. So it made it a lot harder for him to lift the league title. A little change in camera angle there. Anyway, let's run through their stats whilst playing in the Premier League. So Steven Gerrard has made 504 appearances in the Premier League. He managed to score 120 goals and he managed to provide 92 assists. Whereas De Bruyne, who is obviously still currently playing, yet injured at the moment, has played 240 appearances in the Premier League. He has scored 64 goals and has assisted 101. So as you can see, De Bruyne is assisting a lot more, but it does help when you have world-class players around you season in, season out. And as you can see, Gerrard's assist, although he has only got 9 assists less, he has made more than double the appearances in the Premier League. But when you look at the goals, De Bruyne 64 and 240 and Gerrard 120 and 504, it's more of a level playing field. If you expected De Bruyne to play another 240 appearances, he probably would get around another 60 goals, which would make him roughly on par with Gerrard. But obviously we know De Bruyne is not going to play another 240 appearances. Well, he could, but I don't think he will. I think he'd either retire or move somewhere else by then because he's not going to go on forever. And especially with his injury record at the moment, it doesn't seem like he'll play like Modric, age like fine wine. I don't think he will. But anyway, enough of that. That's enough waffling there. That's not what the topic is at hand. The topic is at hand, who is the better player? And as you can see there, De Bruyne's stats do look slightly better than Gerrard. But then I link it back. Obviously, look at the team they're playing in. World-class stars at City, less world-class at Liverpool. It always links back to that. De Bruyne is the more decorated player, the player who arguably has the better Premier League stats, and the player who has the best season statistically. However, that is not where it ends. Let's look at their attributes. Who is a better shooter? Who is a better striker of the ball? Steven Gerrard. Who's better at volleys? Steven Gerrard. Who's better at defensively, being defensively aware and in the challenge? Steven Gerrard. Who's better aerially? Steven Gerrard. Who's better at heading the ball? Steven Gerrard. But then you look on the other side. Who's better at crossing? Kevin De Bruyne. Who's better at passing? Kevin De Bruyne. Who's better at free kicks? Probably Kevin De Bruyne. Who's more of a creative spark? Kevin De Bruyne. Who's more versatile? Steven Gerrard. So as you can see, the attributes are very, very balanced. The offensive attributes tend to lean more towards De Bruyne, whereas the defensive attributes tend to lean more towards Steven Gerrard. But as we know, Steven Gerrard did occupy loads of different positions, whether that be the 6, the 8, the 10, playing as a second striker, whereas we know De Bruyne never plays deep. He either plays as that 8, that number 10, the player who plays in the right half space, sometimes even as a false 9, he sometimes drifts out wide. He's obviously a big, big threat going forward. Also, when you watch the pair, it is hard to come to a conclusion. Kevin De Bruyne is very good at driving the ball. When he gets the ball and moves forward and progresses forward, it is hard to stop. He is a powerful runner and he has an excellent weak foot. He scored 4 goals against Wolves once. I think he either got a hat-trick or scored 2 goals with his weak foot. He was absolutely excellent that game. But then on the other hand, you look at Steven Gerrard, who can just smack the ball from anywhere on the pitch and it seems to end up in the net. Look at that goal against West Ham in the FA Cup final, the dying embers of the match. Absolutely hits a thunderbolt strike into the bottom corner. The goal against Olympiacos in the Champions League for Liverpool at Anfield. There's many memorable goals Gerrard has scored where he's banged them from long range, and that is an attribute he has, and it's an attribute he's very, very good at. So for me, this may be a bit biased as I am a Liverpool fan, but for me, the better midfield player is Steven Gerrard. I think De Bruyne is arguably the best playmaker we have ever seen in the Premier League, and going forward, he is truly, truly special. He is so good. He's just a phenomenal player. He is truly great. But when you look at Steven Gerrard and what he has done in so many poor Liverpool teams, you have to give it to him. He has dragged so many teams which didn't deserve to win trophies to the pinnacle of football. Like, look at that goal that he scored against AC Milan in the Champions League final in 2005. The famous night in Istanbul where Liverpool were 3-0 down against a world-class AC Milan team, led by Carlo Ancelotti, the Champions League specialist. And what do they go and do? They come back from 3 goals down to draw 3-0 and they win on penalties. And who is that led by? Steven Gerrard. You look at that Liverpool team, bar Xabi Alonso and maybe Jamie Carragher, how many legends, how many legendary players are there in that team? And then you look at that AC Milan team, which is filled with superstar talents. Shevchenko, Crespo, Maldini, Kaká, Pirlo, Cafu. The list goes on and on. I don't think De Bruyne could drag a team like that. I don't think De Bruyne could lead a team like that. But then on the other hand, if you put Gerrard in this Man City team at the moment, although I think he would be absolutely exceptional, would he have the same impact as Kevin De Bruyne? Because Kevin De Bruyne, like I said, he fits that Manchester City team like a glove. His playmaking ability is as good as we've ever seen in the Premier League. So there's 2 sides to the coin and you can flip it either way. And if you did say Kevin De Bruyne, I wouldn't be mad at you because I think he's a phenomenal player. But to achieve phenomenal things in a great team is easier than to achieve greatness in a poor team. And although Liverpool have had good teams over the years, for the majority of those seasons, they weren't the best team in the world, they weren't the best team in the league, and they still managed to win silverware. But obviously, Gerrard never won a Premier League, so look at it whichever way you want. But for me, in my opinion, Steven Gerrard, as I previously mentioned, is the better midfield player. And for me, also in my opinion, I think he's the best midfielder in Premier League history. Comment your thoughts down below. Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Thanks for watching. Hit the like button and the subscribe button, and we'll catch you in the next one.